Shocking allegations against Will Smith, a violinist who was a finalist on America's Got Talent and performed in Smith's band, is accusing the star of predatory.
It came to me. I was like, wow, my journey from feeling unlovable to lovable is a worthy story to tell.
August Alsina says he had to run for his life. Everyone thought the Smiths' entanglement saga ended years ago, a messy love story cleaned up with talk of healing and maturity, until he broke the silence and turned it into a warning. Hours after Will Smith was hit with an intimate harassment lawsuit, Alsina's message exploded online, hinting that he'd been hunted, threatened, and forced into silence by the same couple who once called their chaos unconditional love. Insiders say he's speaking now because the fear finally broke. In 2020, Jada Pinkett Smith called it an entanglement. In 2025, Will was accused of grooming a tour musician. In 2026, Alsina says he hid from them both, terrified after receiving threats to stay quiet. Yet the official story still insists on peace, separation, and respect, the same script every time the image cracks. So why does every person who steps too close to the Smiths' orbit end up vanishing, fired, or humiliated? Whatever August just triggered, it isn't about love anymore. It's about control, and what happens when the people who once owned the narrative start losing it.
Being fired or getting blamed or shamed or threatened or anything like that, simply for reporting misconduct or safety threats at work, is not okay.
The messages start spreading before anyone can verify them. August Alsina isn't hinting anymore. He's spelling it out. He says he had to leave his home, cut contact, disappear, because what began as an entanglement turned into intimidation. The claim hits within hours of the Will Smith lawsuit filing in Los Angeles, and the overlap feels surgical, almost timed. Screenshots circulate of fans reposting his words next to headlines about the musician accusing Will of grooming. Industry publicists whisper that August's runaway story isn't new to people inside the circle. It's just the first time he said it out loud. One insider puts it bluntly: he was told to shut up or vanish. The official response from the Smith side is silence, the kind that usually signals lawyers, not peace. It's the silence that hangs too long to be casual, and for anyone watching, that silence lands like confirmation. The story the world knows goes back to 2020, when Jada Pinkett Smith called the relationship an entanglement on her own show, with Will sitting across from her. The couple's laughter then feels grotesque now, replayed against August's newest claim that he was threatened afterward. That red table talk, taped after midnight, according to Will's later explanation, became the most dissected conversation of their marriage. Jada insisted she was separated and helping August heal. Will said there was no infidelity. Both performed calm understanding. But people close to August say he was breaking down even before the cameras rolled. He told friends he felt used, thrown away, and that every time he tried to talk publicly, someone from the Smith orbit stepped in. It's unclear who exactly stepped in, but what's consistent is the aftermath. The way he cut contact completely after that broadcast and disappeared from interviews for years. That retreat now looks less like heartbreak and more like survival. The timing of August's statement would be suspicious even without the lawsuit, but together they look synchronized, like dominoes falling in slow motion. The legal complaint against Will Smith, filed just before the new year, describes the actor as deliberately grooming violinist Brian King Joseph during the 2025 tour. The complaint lists strange evidence left in a Las Vegas hotel room, a note signed with a drawn heart, a bottle labeled with someone else's name, a red bag, even hospital paperwork that didn't belong to Joseph. The documents accuse Smith's team of firing him after he reported it. And then, without warning, August speaks. The pattern is too tight. A young musician claims manipulation, then loses his job. Another young musician claims he fled after being threatened. The machinery looks the same: control, silence, discard. Hollywood insiders start talking about a cycle that has followed the Smiths for years, the kind that looks spiritual on camera and predatory off it.
So according to the complaint, this all happened in March of last year while the violinist was on tour with Will Smith for Smith's global tour for his latest album based on a true story. And according to the complaint, there was this intrusion at his Las Vegas hotel room. He came back to his hotel, he says, and found that there was no forced entry, but that someone had entered the room and left a number of items.
Jada's own interviews feed the confusion instead of ending it. In October 2023, she tells NBC that she and Will have been separated since 2016, but are not interested in divorce. She says, "I made a promise that there will never be a reason for us to get a divorce." The quote now reads like a vow of permanence that borders on imprisonment. If they've been apart for nearly a decade, how many people moved through their orbit believing they were joining one family, one empire still intact? When August says he had to hide, he's not just describing fear. He's describing trying to step out of a closed circuit that never ends. Former associates call the Smith marriage a machine that eats loyalty. Even the bad marriage for life joke from 2020 lands differently now, not as humor, but as a motto. And the more Jada insists on unity, the less the public believes her. That's the strange irony. Every time she clarifies, the cracks widen.
Then there was another interview with TMZ just after that where one of the cameramen asked Jada, hey Jada, have you seen Will with any men before? And her answer was no. So now that's a lie too, because I put out an interview with Will Smith grabbing Alfonso Rivera, squeezing his nipple and trying to put his finger in his right?
The lawsuit details keep feeding the flames. On December 25, 2025, Brian King Joseph posts a video saying he was fired for reporting misconduct and safety threats at work. He never names Will directly, but the date lines up with the legal filing days later. By January 1st, Smith's attorney releases a statement calling the accusations false, baseless, and reckless. But within hours, August's statement begins trending higher. For observers, it feels less like coincidence and more like coordinated collapse. People start pulling up older rumors. The former assistant story about Will and Dwayne Martin, the Calabasas NDA incident, even old clips of Jada on talk shows laughing about their grown marriage. Every fragment now fits a new theory, that the couple has been managing image fires for years, hiding a system of influence behind self-help language. One entertainment lawyer calls it Hollywood damage control disguised as enlightenment. The brand that once thrived on openness now looks airtight, locked from the inside. Here's where the story stops making sense. If Jada and Will were already separated, if August was free to speak, and if healing was the only motive, why the fear? Why the talk of threats? Why the timing with the lawsuit? The people who've worked with the Smiths say nothing happens near them by accident. Their public image has survived everything. Cheating rumors, open marriage speculation, even the Oscars slap. Every scandal somehow turns into another episode of self-reflection. But August's tone is different. It's not about pain. It's about danger. He's not apologizing. He's warning. I had to run, he says. I had to get away. And that line cuts through years of polished interviews like a blade. It implies something unscripted, something that doesn't fit the red table format. Insiders claim his words set off calls within the Smith Management Network immediately, with one source saying they knew it was coming, they just didn't know when. That kind of reaction doesn't sound like surprise. It sounds like panic.
That Bilal says that Jada went up to him at a party back in November 2021 and said, if you keep talking about Will and about me, you're gonna catch a bullet. You're gonna catch it.
Then the old names resurface. Dwayne Martin, brother Bilal, the accusations of private encounters behind closed doors. These were dismissed as gossip months ago, until August's statement reframed them as part of the same continuum. People who got too close and ended up silenced or shamed. The Calabasas party in 2021, where an associate alleged Jada demanded an NDA with physical threats, is being reposted again, now seen as a precursor. Those who once laughed at open marriage rumors now talk about manipulation. It's not about intimacy anymore. It's about control. Terrence Howard's recent comments about Hollywood men losing their man card get dragged into the conversation too, suddenly sounding less abstract. In this light, the industry looks like a web of exchanges, power traded for silence, image for safety. And somewhere in that pattern, August fits perfectly, the artist who played along until he realized the game never ends. Meanwhile, Will's camp keeps posting carefully curated calm, family photos, motivational captions, the usual optics. But there's a visible tightening. Comment sections limited, older posts quietly deleted. The management company named in the lawsuit, Treball Studios, issues no statement. The lack of denial from Jada's side becomes its own kind of admission, and August's reappearance starts to feel like the first open revolt from inside the inner circle. People who used to protect the brand now leak screenshots. A studio source claims, there's a lot more coming. That phrase spreads like a warning flare. The contradiction is glaring. Will publicly praises truth and love in old clips, while in court documents, another artist describes a pattern of predatory behavior. Jada claims separation, but every action suggests coordination. Even fans who once defended them start saying it out loud. The story no longer sounds like marital drama. It sounds like damage management under threat.
And now, Bilal has filed a $3 million lawsuit against Jada, claiming that she basically threatened, it comes across like a threat,
Each new connection deepens the unease. The Smiths built a world around transparency. Red table talk was supposed to be confession as control, but confession only works when you hold the microphone. Now, the people they once invited in are taking it back. August's words break the pattern because they weren't edited, scheduled, or staged. He talks about hiding, not healing. About threats, not therapy. About silence that wasn't voluntary. And for the first time, the Smiths don't have a counter-narrative ready. The lawsuit, the rumors, the resurfaced clips, they collide in real time, forming a portrait of power fraying under its own polish. Here's the unsettling part. No one is denying the core of it. They're just questioning timing, loyalty, intent. The deflection sounds rehearsed, the denials sound tired, and that's when people start asking the question the Smiths have avoided for years. Not what happened, but who's really running this machine, and what happens to those who try to escape it.
I've spoken to him, and without getting into too much attorney-client communication, he is very thankful for support that he's getting. It's a lot. This story has caught the attention of a lot of media, and a lot of people are talking about this, and he's getting a lot of messages, and people are asking him to come on their shows and talk about the case and talk about things that are going on.
Inside the industry, people are whispering that this isn't just about one couple. It's about the system that built them. Will and Jada aren't seen as outliers anymore. They're a mirror of Hollywood's deeper machinery, the one that turns privacy into a performance and confession into control. The whispers trace back years to when the Smiths positioned themselves as pioneers of transparency while quietly enforcing silence behind the scenes. Former collaborators talk about energy management meetings where loyalty was measured, not earned. Those same people now describe the couple's circle as a spiritual company with a legal department. The moment August spoke, that entire structure trembled. And what's worse, it's not the shock of what he said that has everyone talking, it's who hasn't spoken at all. People close to Jada say her phone hasn't stopped ringing, that old allies are choosing sides, and that whatever happens next will separate believers from survivors. The empire that once sold enlightenment now smells like panic.
You need to find a way to make sure your wife ain't talking about your private business.
There's a long memory in this business, and old stories are coming back to life. When Will publicly defended Jada during the Oscars incident, calling her his wife, even though they'd been separated for years, it wasn't a slip, it was instinct. Insiders now read that night as a moment of misplaced loyalty, a flash of someone protecting an image rather than a person. And in the weeks after, their public appearances, separate interviews, coordinated quotes, feel almost rehearsed. It's not a marriage, it's a partnership, one studio executive once said. But partnerships run on contracts, and contracts have limits. The cracks show in the quiet moves, Jada's refusal to divorce, Will's carefully worded statements, the endless talk about unconditional love. These aren't vows, they're containment strategies. Each revelation, from lawsuits to leaked messages, points to the same motive: protect the brand at any cost. And that brand, built on intimacy, depends on keeping outsiders scared to speak.
Will was bent over on the couch and Dwayne was standing up. Like murder. It was murder in there.
What's more revealing is how the same themes repeat across every person drawn into their world. Vulnerable artists, struggling performers, people who arrive seeking mentorship and leave with stories they can't tell. The details change. A hotel in Las Vegas, a meeting in Calabasas, a red table confession. But the rhythm doesn't. There's the invitation, the bond, the exposure, and finally the silence. August's runaway isn't an isolated panic. It's part of a pattern stretching back years. Even those who defend the Smiths admit privately that the timing of all these accusations feels like a reckoning, not coincidence. When the machine starts leaking from the inside, it means someone powerful lost control, says one longtime manager. The lawsuit now acts as a wedge, prying open the carefully sealed layers of the couple's image. The question hanging over the studios isn't whether the story is true, it's who's next to speak. And the re-examination doesn't stop with them. When Terrence Howard recently described Hollywood men giving up their man card to survive, people laughed it off as philosophy. But in this new context, it sounds like testimony. The overlapping rumors, Diddy's parties, secret favors, whispered exchanges, all feed a single picture of what happens when success depends on silence. For years, Jada used the language of healing to explain her choices. Now, that language feels weaponized. The talk of helping, guiding, evolving suddenly reads as recruitment. Fans scroll back through old interviews, catching the loaded pauses, the knowing glances. It's not that they didn't see it before. It's that now they can't unsee it. The Smiths became the perfect Hollywood template, spiritual on camera, transactional behind closed doors. And that duality, the polished light versus the whispered shadow, is exactly what keeps the story alive. Everyone's watching, waiting to see which version collapses first.
I was sickened. I was sickened by the standing ovation. I felt like Hollywood is just spineless. En masse.
Insiders claim the legal side is bracing for fallout bigger than the lawsuit itself. This is the breach point, says a source close to one of the Smiths' longtime collaborators. Studios are reviewing old contracts tied to tray ball management. Brand partners are quietly pausing campaigns. It's not just about reputation, it's money. The Smith name once guaranteed global market safety. Now it's a liability. A single unverified message from August can sink endorsements faster than any courtroom verdict. That's why, according to multiple insiders, the couple's handlers are split between damage control and information lockdown. The fear isn't the next accusation. It's what happens when the public connects the dots. Once the narrative flips from scandal to system, every partnership they've ever had looks suspect. The danger isn't what's proven. It's what starts to sound plausible. Every public gesture now carries subtext. Jada's calm interviews about love and freedom, Will's attempts at humor online, even Willow and Jaden's cryptic posts. They all look like coded messages, fragments of a family under siege. The facade of unity feels thinner with each new detail. It's not just that people are losing faith, it's that the myth itself is collapsing. They built a religion around themselves, says one producer who worked with them years ago. And now the congregation's walking out. Hollywood loves reinvention, but it also remembers betrayal. When those two collide, careers end quietly. No announcements, no apologies, just fading credits. That's what the insiders are betting on now. Slow erasure instead of public implosion. But the leaks aren't stopping, and the silence from the top only feeds the rumor that something much larger is being contained.
It was my man, this is probably irreparable.
Even the fans are split. Half see August as the victim reclaiming his voice. The rest think he's detonating the truth out of revenge. Both sides agree on one thing. The story's not over. The lawsuit against Will drags their name into court again, while August's words hang like prophecy. More lawsuits could follow. More insiders could flip. What used to be a love triangle has turned into a map of influence, intimidation, and image control. The same people who once defended the Smiths' grown relationship now question whether that freedom ever existed, and the industry, usually so quick to move on, isn't looking away this time. There's a sense that this isn't just about who did what. It's about who still thinks they can get away with it. The Smiths built their empire on exposure. Now, exposure is what's tearing it apart. The question now is what kind of fallout comes next. Does August have proof? Or is the power of his story enough to pull others forward? Will the lawsuit open doors that the industry's been locking for decades? How much of Hollywood's healing culture is really manipulation in disguise? And after everything, will the Smiths survive the brand they created or become its final casualties? Drop your thoughts, your theories, your bets in the comments. Because this story isn't closing, it's just reaching the point where everyone decides which side they're on.